Hello there, and welcome again to another command in our study of the commands of Christ, to command number 16, do not cast pearls. But before we get into this, let's answer the question that was posed in the previous session of judging not. The question was, David's wisest and most trusted advisor was Ahithophel. His counsel was like inquiring at the oracles of God. Why then did Ahithophel join Absalom's revolt against David and give counsel to kill David? Hopefully you had a chance to dig into this question and find some insight. So, we just mentioned, Ahithophel was a wise and trusted counselor of David. He was so wise, it was said of him that the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracles of God. With such wisdom, it would seem obvious that Ahithophel would remain loyal to David, God's elect. When David's son Absalom rose up, however, and rebelled against David. However, Ahithophel turned against David and not only joined Absalom, but also gave Absalom counsel on how to kill David. And when Absalom decided not to follow the counsel of Ahithophel, Ahithophel went home, put his house in order, and hanged himself. We can see that in 2 Samuel chapter 17, 1-4, and then verses 14 and 23. What Ahithophel had planned for David, it turned out coming back upon him, even at his own hand. But what Ahithophel intended to do to David, he did himself. But why? A possible answer is found in the genealogies of Ahithophel. Ahithophel was a Gileonite. You can see that in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verses 12. And Eliam was the son of Ahithophel. You can see that in 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 34. And then here's the key one. Eliam was the father of Bathsheba. See 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 3. And maybe you, if you didn't see this before, you are starting to connect the dots to a possible reason why Ahithophel would have a problem with David. Ahithophel could have been, and he was the grandfather of Bathsheba. And just as Absalom had purposed to kill Amnon for immorality with his sister, so Ahithophel may have become bitter and purposed to kill David for defiling his granddaughter. Even though Ahithophel was loyal for many years, when the right opportunity came up, he was probably thinking this was the final opportunity for David to get what was coming to him in his own mind. Ahithophel and Absalom were of like spirit and died for their judgments against David. Both had concluded that David was not fit to rule the nation and sought to remove him from this position. Their destruction illustrates the damage that comes to those who judge others. Perhaps Ahithophel didn't see that David suffered enough for what he did to his granddaughter. Perhaps he saw him as illegitimate. Perhaps he didn't see some kind of enough consequences. Who knows? I'm not. It's kind of a guess at this point, but there was perhaps clearly some kind of resentment and bitterness that grew over time in Ahithophel. And when the right moment and the right pieces fit together, he thought this is the opportunity for David to be removed from his position. And you can see all that in 2 Samuel chapter 15, 12, 17 verses 13, and 18, 15. And I hope you see again that many times when somebody plans destruction for another person, the very thing that they had planned returns back to them. And this was a principle that we learned in one of the previous studies, in one of the previous commands, with Mordecai and Haman. That what Haman had planned to Mordecai turned back. The very same judgment fell upon him. So hopefully this question helped you add to your insight and knowledge about the command to judge not from our previous study. And now for today's command, do not cast pearls. We see that in Matthew chapter 7, verses 6. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you. an Old Testament basis. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. Exodus 12, verses 43 to 45. This is saying that none of the unbelievers, no outsider, could partake of in the Passover. This was only and strictly reserved for those who are of the covenant. And sometimes I think about certain meals throughout the year that we might be inclined to invite outsiders, maybe for Christmas, maybe for Passover, maybe for something else, where it's where the theme of it is all biblically based. And although we might be inclined to invite an outsider, sometimes it's just not appropriate that they join fellow believers at the same table when we are celebrating something that's meaningful to us. It's just something to think of. It's not in all cases, and we want to be generous to outsiders. But in this, we can see from this passage that the Passover itself, the meal, was very important, and no outsider could eat thereof until they became a member of the covenant. The Hebrew word for dogs is kaleb, meaning figuratively a male prostitute. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore, or the price of a dog, or in this case a male prostitute, into the house of the Lord thy God for any vow, for even both these are abomination unto the Lord thy God. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 17 to 18. A dog is a despicable curse. When Elisha predicted that Hazael would burn the strongholds of Israel, kill young men with the sword, dash children against stones to kill them, and rip open women with unborn children, Hazael exclaimed, Is thy servant a dog, that he should do this great thing? In 2 Kings chapter 8, verses 13. What Elisha predicted that Hazael would do just shocked him utterly, that he thought that those deeds were so despicable, so unthinkable, that he thought that Elisha thought of him as a kind of dog. But the prophet's words turned out to come true later on in 2 Kings, in later chapters, that Hazael, when he became king, did all those despicable things. And it's a real lesson to us that over time, through the process of time, that even though something that might have shocked us when we were younger, that if told to us that we would do, it would shock us, over the process of time, our conscience got dimmed. We started to compromise in some small areas, and eventually to the point where we do, or somebody would do gross wickedness and not even have a problem with it. And there's certainly, I think, a good message here in this man's life, this king's life, that something that shocked him. And you recall Peter, when Jesus told him that he would deny his Lord 3 times. It was just so shocking, but in a short time he did that same thing. He couldn't believe. But this one is a longer length of time. This is more years later, and who knows how his conscience began to be deadened through time. Maybe he made small compromises here and there. I'm not sure, but something that interesting at one point in his life shocked him, that to hear that he would do such things. He did it probably without any problem. At the crucifixion of Jesus, the Lord associated dogs with the wicked. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. Psalms chapter 22, verses 16 and verses 20. God condemned the leaders of Israel by stating, His watchmen are blind, all ignorant. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough. And they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his own everyone for his gain, for his quarter. Isaiah chapter 56 verses 10 and 11. And these are not the kind of dogs that we consider today. The kind of friendly man's best friend, a part of the family, wears a nice little knitted sweater with a colorful collar and a nice little bed with pillows and all these things. This is not the kind of dogs we're talking about. This is not dogs that are members of the family that we love like a member of the family. These are wild and hungry. They act on physical instinct and immediate gratification. These are rabid dogs. And it's not the kind that we should consider that we have in our house today. And as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. It should say, Proverbs 26:11. In the Aramaic English New Testament, it has some insights about this term dogs. And in that, dogs represent apostate Jews. An apostate is a person who forsakes his religion, his cause, and party. So a Jew who has turned from the faith is considered a dog. What is the holy things? The memory verse, the command says not to give things that are holy unto the dogs. Well, there's two types of holy things. Number one, there are things that are intrinsically holy. That's God, Scripture, and God's name are some examples of it. Things that are intrinsically holy. And then there are things that are made holy by dedication, our bodies, the church, our possessions. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Romans chapter 12, verses 1. Yield your members servant to righteousness unto holiness. Romans chapter 6 verses 19. Something that is holy is separate or set apart unto God. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verses 17. Isaiah chapter 52:11. Having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verses 1. Follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 14. So without holiness no one will see the Lord. So holiness is very important. In Leviticus 19 from 29 to 54 we have laws of holiness and justice. There are ways here to be holy and to do holy things, and ways to not be the opposite, to be unholy. And here are a few. Fear or revere father and mother. Keep his commandments. Turn not to idols or make molten golden gods. If you offer a sacrifice of peace, it should be at your own free will. When reaping the land, leave the corners of the field for the poor and the stranger. Don't steal or deal falsely or lie to one another. Do not swear by God's name falsely, nor profane his name. These are ways to become unholy. Don't defraud your neighbor, nor rob him. Give the hired worker their wages. Don't curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but shall fear the Lord. Do not unrighteousness in judgment, not respecting the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness you shall judge thy neighbor. You shall not be a gossip, talebearer, nor stand against the blood of your neighbor. You shall not hate thy brother in thine heart. You shall rebuke your neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him. You shall not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but shall love thy neighbor as thyself. Ways to be holy again. Keep his statutes. Don't mix diverse kinds of livestock together, nor sow your field with mixed seeds. Don't have sexual relations with a woman that is engaged to another man. Fruit trees in the promised land shall be considered uncircumcised for the first 3 years. In the fourth, all fruit is holy, shall be holy to praise the Lord with. But in the 5th year you shall eat the fruit of the tree. You shall not eat anything that with blood in it, nor use divination, enchantment, or soothsaying. You shall not round the corners of your head, nor mar the corners of your beard. You shall not make cutting in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. These are again ways to either be holy or to avoid becoming unholy. Don't prostitute your daughter, nor cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom, and the land become full of wickedness. Keep his Sabbaths. This is the second time it's mentioned. Reverence his sanctuary. Give no regard to mediums, familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. Rise to give honor to the grey-headed, honor the face of the old man, and fear thy God. If a stranger journeys with you in your land, do not mistreat him. But the stranger that lives, dwells with you, shall be as a native born, and you shall love him as yourself. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, measurement, or weights, but rather just balances, just weights you will have. Observe all my statutes and judgments, and all my judgments, and do them. That's all from Leviticus 19, from 26 to 54. Ways to be holy, or to prevent from becoming unholy. Now a pearl is a unique gem. It's made by an oyster, as you probably know, and it's made. The oyster makes it by having a reaction to an irritating piece of dirt or debris in its shell, which grows over time in the oyster. These pearls are so precious, the reviling, the irritation that the oyster suffers, and in the same way, the reviling and the irritation that you and I suffer, and the persecution that we suffer, which embody these pearls, are so precious that they are forever in the New Jerusalem as the 12 gates of the city. And we see that in Revelation 21:21. And the 12 gates, which were 12 pearls, it should say, every individual gate was of one pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. So, to the oyster, the pearl is an irritation. It's reacting to dirt and irritation, but something beautiful is produced as a result of this irritation. And I believe this is what the Lord is trying to tell us, that these irritations, these difficulties, these persecutions are producing in us a pearl of great price. When Jesus wanted to describe the kingdom of heaven, he selected a gem that represented ultimate perfection to the Hebrew mind. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Matthew chapter 13, verses 45 to 46. So the pig or the swine, in this case, are unclean, savage animals. We know that from Leviticus 11:7. They satisfy immediate appetites. In Matthew chapter 8, verses 28 to 34, Jesus allowed the demons in the man at Gergesene to possess a herd of swine. Demons are unclean, so the swine are unclean. And the swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the waters. In the Aramaic English New Testament, it indicates that a pig, a swine, represented apostate Gentiles who are ignorant of God. So, dogs are apostate Jews, and swine are apostate Gentiles. So, think about that when we consider the command again. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine. By giving pearls to them, they assume the pearls are something to satisfy the natural appetite, but when they realize that they were misled by our attention to them and failure to fulfill their expectations, they will trample the jewels we gave them and turn to attack us. They won't see the value of the pearls because they just want something they can satisfy their appetites with immediately. So that's why we are not to give those precious things to groups that won't appreciate them, and I'll get into that more in a little bit. Some disasters from not keeping this command. A couple little stories and thoughts is in my younger years. I remember in school trying to share the gospel with others, and my tactic maybe wasn't very good, and I would try to share these gems of truth that we have in Scripture, but it was usually a fruitless effort. I could not get them to see the beauty of Scripture and the need to be saved. I would share with them the fact that Jesus died for their sins, but until an unbeliever understands the reasoning behind all this, they cannot appreciate this. The sinners cannot appreciate the wisdom of God. It's foolishness to them. And I saw this same sort of thing when I observed a new believer who was excited, loved God, um, was so happy to find faith, and he was so eager to share the gospel with others and to share with unbelievers, to the point that he closed their ears. They no longer wanted to hear anything of the kind from him. It produced near hostility from their reactions. But because he was a new believer and he was eager to share, he didn't quite understand the value that he now had in how unbelievers, until they are drawn by the Spirit, are not ready to hear and receive the valuable items that we carry, that we have and we carry with us. Sometimes we have to deal with a fool. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Proverbs 13:20. Speak not in the ears of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of thy words. Proverbs 23 verses 9. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. Proverbs 26:4 and 5. And I heard another quote, and perhaps you heard the same, that a fool can ask more questions than 50 wise men can answer. In the Hebrew, there are 5 words meaning a fool, or 5 words that are translated as fool, and great insight can be gained by understanding their precise definitions. And we'll go through all 5 here. We have first, a simple fool is extremely vulnerable and believes everything he is told. He is without knowledge and easily seduced, and will suffer consequences for following foolish advice. He desperately needs the instruction of a wise mentor. Almost kind of childlike, just believes everything. It's so gullible, maybe is another word to say this. Next, we have a reactionary fool. This kind of person is thick-headed and believes his own way of thinking is always right, and his mouth gets him into trouble. Arguing with him is useless because he will only learn through punishment. It is important that his authorities be aware of his activities. And perhaps many teenagers can be, at least for a time, guilty of this kind of thinking, this kind of stubbornness. And it's too bad that some people have to learn the hard way, but that is the case with this kind of reactionary fool. The third kind is a silly fool. This silly fool has rejected the wisdom of God and is arrogantly set on doing what brings immediate pleasure. He glories in things he should be ashamed of. His motives and methods are subtle, and close association with him should be avoided because of his capacity to lead others astray. He needs serious reproofs. And this kind of fool seems to have a power over those around him to do silly things with him. And beware of making friends with this kind of individual because of their ability to influence others. A scorning fool is someone who rejects the rules, mocks those who make them, embracing that which is an abomination to God. He initiates contention and division. A person who tries to correct him will suffer for it. He should be avoided and requires severe discipline from his authorities. This kind of fool, we're starting to get into a more kind of stubborn person, a more obstinate, someone who's more willfully disobedient. And you can see that the gradation of fools in this 1 to 5 starts to get worse and worse, from the more innocent and carefree to the more stubborn, hard, and willfully disobedient. Which leads us to the 5th one. A committed fool is proud and self-confident. He is his own God and seeks to gratify his lower nature. He is dedicated to drawing others into his wicked ways and teaching them to do greater evil. We should have no association with him. Instead, we should pray for God to change his his heart. So be careful when around this kind of person, and stay as far away from them as possible if you happen to find this person. Questions to Jesus and his response. We can learn some insights about this command in the way that Jesus responds to people who ask him questions. A rhetorical question, those are the kind which have no answer, which no answer is expected, or to which one obvious answer may be given. A wise man will use rhetorical questions to present a listener with truth, but a fool will use it to emphasize his false ideas. When the Pharisees asked Jesus if it was lawful to heal on the Sabbath, Jesus responded to them with two rhetorical questions of his own, leaving them with no choice but to agree. And you see that in Matthew chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. And he said unto them, What man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? That's the first rhetorical question. Of course they would lift it out if they fell into a pit on the Sabbath day. How much then is a man better than a sheep? The answer to the second rhetorical question is a lot. Wherefore, it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. And so with these two rhetorical questions, Jesus was answering their question. Next we have some argumentative questions are born out of pride. They stir up debate and controversy over conflicting points of view and force the listeners to take sides. When the Pharisees questioned Jesus about the basis of his authority, he exposed their divisive intentions and then addressed the topic of their questions, presenting truth about himself through parables. And we can see that in Matthew chapter 21, verses 23 to 46. And when he was come into the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came unto him as he was teaching, and said, By what authority dost thou do these things? And who gave you this authority? That was the question. And Jesus answered and said unto them, I will ask you one thing. If you tell me, I in likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, whence was it? From heaven or from men? So Jesus is showing that these Pharisees really don't want to know the truth. They just want to be argumentative and divisive. And when they could not answer or did not want to answer Jesus' question, neither did he respond to their question. Next we have deceptive questions. At the prompting of the Pharisees, one person asked Jesus if it was lawful to pay taxes to Caesar. The intent behind the question was to cause Jesus to either defy the Roman government or to anger the Jews who hated the Roman occupation. Jesus responded with perceptive questions of his own and then explained the principle related to the situation. You can see that in Matthew chapter 22, verses 16 to 22. And they sent out unto him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Master, we know that thou art true and teachest the way of God in truth, neither carest thou for any man, for thou regardest not the person of men. See, they tried to butter him up before they asked him that difficult question. Tried to get him to become prideful, with this flattery. They didn't think anything of the sort. But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why tempt me, ye hypocrites? That's when they asked him about, is it lawful to pay, to give tribute to Caesar or not? Why tempt me, ye hypocrites? Show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And when he said unto them, Whose is this image and superscription? They said unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, Render therefore unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. It was a brilliant answer to their question, because their question was not asked honestly, and Jesus answered it brilliantly. These deceptive questions involve trickery and ingenuity in an attempt to ensnare the ones who answer them. They have no-win answers. Next we have insincere questions. These do not express genuine feelings of the questioner and cannot be taken at face value. Following Jesus' arrest, the high priest asked him about his disciples and his doctrine. However, the high priest was not seeking to learn about Jesus, but rather find something about him to condemn. And in this case, when the insincere question was asked, Jesus did not provide the requested explanation. Rather, he pointed to the crowd who had listened to his teaching and told the high priest to ask them what he said. And we see that in John chapter 18, verses 19 through 23. And Pilate wrote on a title, pardon me. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him and spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort, and have in secret have I said nothing. So everything he said openly. He didn't hide anything. And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus, saying, with the palm of his hand, saying, Answerest thou the high priest so? And Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me? Jesus was asking, or rather telling them to ask the people what he had taught, because he taught everything openly. And furthermore, the questions that he was being asked, they were not sincere. They didn't really want to know the truth. They just wanted to look for ways to condemn him. And as we close this command, we have the character quality that goes along with this command is discretion. Discretion versus simple-mindedness. Discretion is using wisdom to avoid damaging attitudes, words, and actions, and to give insightful counsel. Discretion is knowing when it is best to say nothing at all. Discretion is knowing how to describe unpleasant things in a pleasant way. An indiscreet word or action takes a moment to do, but results in a lifetime of regret. Discretion is looking past problems and considering the potential of a person or project. And turning the mirror back towards ourselves, how discreet are you? Do you know how to wisely evaluate an activity? Do you say what is on your mind without first evaluating its effects on others? Some people may like to say, I just speak my mind, I hold nothing back, I got no filter. And, that's not a sign of a discreet person. We should consider how our words may impact our listeners and discern more effective ways to share difficult information or potentially hurtful information, and do it as lovingly and wisely as we can. Do you welcome reproof from those who see you do or say wrong things? Do you learn from others' mistakes so that you do not have to repeat them? Do you stand alone for doing right and avoid all appearance of evil? Do you choose your friends on the basis of their wisdom rather than their popularity? Do you refrain from spreading gossip, slander, and damaging reports? And the command question that goes along with this command, Jesus praised the Good Samaritan for helping a wounded stranger. Why did he then tell the Syrophoenician woman he could not help her suffering daughter because he could not give what he had to the dogs? You can see that in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37, and Matthew chapter 15, 21 to 28. So we'll answer this question next time, but in the meantime, dig into this question, dig into the passage, and see if you can find some insight and answer to this question. And when you do, you will gain greater insight into this command about do not cast your pearls to swine, nor give that which is holy unto the dogs. And as we close this command, sing with me this old wonderful song, I will sing of his wondrous story.
I will sing the wondrous story of the Christ who died for me, how he left his home in glory for the cross of Calvary. Jesus found me, found the sheep that went astray. Threw his loving arms around me, drew me back into his way. Yes, I'll sing the wondrous story of the Christ who died for me. Sing it with the saints in glory, gathered by the crystal sea.
Thank you for joining me in this study of our study of the commands of Christ. Please join me again next time when we answer the question that was posed. We'll dig into a new command, we'll have a new song, and a new question. My name is Stefan, and until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you for Jesus' sake. Amen.